himself said, "For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished." The scripture is an accurate recording of history. Not the smallest letter, nor the smallest stroke in a letter is going to pass out until all is accomplished. The issue, so think about that. That historical message of scripture, nothing is going to pass away. It's a real recording of real history. So it certainly behooves us to know the historical arguments. You ready to go on? Okay. The other issue raised by doubting scholars is the use of the Aramaic language in the center of the book. Now, this is really subdivided into two smaller issues. First, why would a single author use 2 or more, as many as 5 languages we're going to see, in one book? Think about that. Why, if I'm going to write a book, would I write it in at least 4, maybe 5 separate languages? Why would I do that? And second, does this not imply a later assembling of the book out of, different sources? Like different, language sources that were assembled together. Okay, we're going to look at those two sub-arguments. The first one, a single author using multiple languages seems very strange to us, doesn't it? If you picked up a modern book and started reading it and suddenly it was in Latin, what would you do? Would you put it down and walk away? I would. We're used to a nation state that only has one language. That's how we define a nation state. But these were not nation states. This was a multilingual empire. So a multilingual approach would certainly be normal in a multilingual empire. Again, understanding the history of the text is helping us deny the crazy liberal scholars or the crazy doubting liberal scholars' nonsensical argument. I mean, if you really think about it, this is a multilingual empire. A multilingual empire. They speak more than one language normally. Why wouldn't you write the book in multiple languages to reach the largest audience? Now, we could further suppose, knowing that it is a multilingual empire, that Daniel would use the language most accessible to the people that he wanted to reach, right? For example, if I came up here and started preaching in Latin, you guys would probably turn around and walk. Do you remember that sermon at First Baptist Church where the guy gets up and starts speaking, was it in some kind of African language or something? Spanish? He got up and preached a whole 40-minute sermon in Spanish to an English-speaking audience. There were some Spanish individuals there who were not. Now think about it. How stupid is that to do? Now, am I saying it's stupid to preach in the language of your audience? No, quite the contrary. But I would say 99% of the people there did not speak Spanish. And he's up there preaching in Spanish and gesticulating, and some of the Spanish congregation was there, they were nodding and saying whatever Spanish ray meant. I don't know what a Spanish ray meant, but they were saying it, and they were getting a lot out of it, I assume, but I got nothing out of it because it was a language I didn't speak. So we can suppose that Daniel wasn't doing that. So that would stand to reason that the section in Aramaic was more directed to people who spoke Aramaic, right? So the section of chapter 2, verse 4, the second half, B, to chapter 7, verse 28 is information most relevant to non-Jewish people. The last 5 chapters in the first section deal with theological issues that a Jewish person would care about. So it's written in Hebrew for them. Now, a Jewish person who speaks Hebrew, an educated, literate Jewish person living in the Babylonian captivity, would certainly speak Aramaic. So he'd be able to read the whole thing. But the issues that were only or mostly for the Jewish people were written in the native language of the people who are going to be reading it for the most important stuff. So the part in Aramaic would be most accessible to people who could read it, and the part in Hebrew would be most accessible to the people who could read it. Doesn't that seem to make sense? Now, that's only 2 languages, right? But I said that there are at least 4, maybe 5 different languages in the book, right? Didn't I say that? Okay. This is a related issue. The use of Persian and Greek words. To a liberal scholar, this demands a late date for the book because they say, why on earth is he going to be speaking in an Aramaic that a lot of liberal scholars, which we're going to see in a few minutes, is kind of foolish, and using absolutely foreign words. Even given a multinational empire speaking different languages, why would he use those words? There are 17 Persian words and 3 Greek words in the whole book. 17 Persian and 3 Greek words. They're forgetting that Daniel wasn't making a running diary as these things were happening. He was writing it down after all these events happened. And since he talks about the Persian conquest of the Babylonian Empire in the book, it makes sense that now he's dealing with a Persian group. Now, of the 17 Persian words, 12 of the 17 were lists of officials, Persian government terms, or names of Persian offices. So, if I say Ahmadinejad in this sermon, that is not an English word, is it? That's somebody's name. So, you could say that I used an Iranian word, so obviously I didn't preach this sermon in 2008 because I obviously preached it when Iran conquered the United States, or thinks they're going to conquer the United States. Does that make sense? Just because I use this name. I'll use some more Iranian names. Khomeini. I'll use one of their titles. Ayatollah. That's 3 Persian words. Does that mean that I preach this sermon later when everybody was speaking, Iranian words? Does that mean that I'm preaching this sermon when Iranian was the common language? No, that's silly. So, 12 of the 17 were Persian words. The other ones were words that were in common use after Persia conquered Babylonia. Because Daniel was there, he records the event. It is natural to use newer words as they come in. Now, the 3 Greek words. Where is he getting these Greek words from? What, he suddenly fly to Greece? To jump on a 747, take a little trip to Athens? And talk to, well, this is the late, he could have talked to, no, couldn't have talked to me. It's before he was born. Talk to some Greek guy in the Athenian democracy? Isn't that silly? Yes, that's silly. They all occur in one verse, chapter 3, verse 5. All 3 refer to musical instruments. All 3 of them refer to musical instruments. Now, why would somebody use the actual name of foreign instruments? Or did you think that Les Paul invented the guitar in 1928? I got news for you. Guitar is not an English word. The Spanish guitar in particular, it's a Spanish instrument. Okay, it wasn't invented by Les Paul in 1928. He's using the official name for a foreign instrument. What I need you to remember out of this section is multiple language use was normal in a multilingual society. Understanding which exact words differ, understanding the history behind the languages, and the exact words in foreign languages have helped us get through the silly, doubting, liberal, critical argument. You know, that's starting to get like a long title. And we can see that these doubting, liberal, critical scholars, their arguments fall apart when you really look at them. I mean, think about it. Think about how stupid these arguments are so far. Think about the 2 arguments we've talked about so far. Number 1, the idea that he wrote that there were 2 dating systems. Well, when you look at it, there were 2 dating systems in use. It's not like we have a worldwide unified dating system. Why should they? Why should taking our dating system, which is not unified, back to them and forcing them to conform to it, why does that make sense? It doesn't. Or the use of 4, and the 5th language is there's an Egyptian word that's used elsewhere in Scripture. So there's two ideas for that. It's an instrument just like the Greek words, but it could have become a Hebrew word by that point because it did come into the Hebrew language eventually. So it might have been one by that point. So at least 4, maybe 5 different languages. Why would that matter? I've shown good historical reasons why that is normal, why we should expect that to happen. So when you understand the historical and literary context of this book, we can have greater security in this book.